Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Finale, and this is Real Estate Talk TGIF, and this is episode 209. How cool is that? 209. Let me get the right stuff up. I am not the best. Production manager or director in the world when it comes to all the toys that I have to work with. But here we are, 209. Here we are, and we've got the great Leigh Brown. Leigh Brown is a top speaker, top agent, top coach. You name it, she's top of it. And Leigh Brown, you were actually on once before. What did we say, 155 weeks ago, which was episode 51. So we're going to go right to a...
That was in a different decade, Dave.
It was a different decade, wasn't it? You know what? That's why you're here, because you're smarter than I am. Let's go to a quick intro. We'll come right back.
Real estate agent, are you looking to acquire clients consistently so you can grow your business and your income to live a great lifestyle? This is Dave Finale and the RE Skill Builder podcast.
Again, I want to welcome Leigh Brown, who I'm very pleased to say you're my friend, mentor of sorts. And a lot of people come on. I've known them a little time. You and I've watched you and followed you over the years. We got a chance to actually meet in person a couple of years ago, which was really a lot of fun. Just, you know, you're just a good person. I want to thank you for that too. And I appreciate you, as I just said, off camera. I'm saying it on camera. So here it is. So before we get started, there's one basic question I ask everybody before we get started. I got to ask it you. I don't know if you're going to know the answer, but what does TGIF stand for?
Well, thank God it's Friday. Woo!
Okay, you know, you are correct sometimes, but in this case, I've got to correct you because it means, thank God, it's finale, right? I mean,
see, but when I say your name, it sounds like it's the end, and there's never a finale for a finale.
Well, okay, so
there will be one day, but that's way off in the future.
Well, you know, I really understand what you're saying, but finale, in the way I spell it, means lamplighter or beacon. It does not mean the end.
It's Italian, right?
It's Italian. That is correct. Finale would be F-I, and people say, "Oh, like the grand finale," and I say, "Wow, I never heard that before. Could I use that?" Anyway, here we are, Leigh. You know what? Again, thanks so much for coming. And this is going to be a conversation. This is conversation about real estate, about you. And to get us started, give me a little idea about you, where you started, how you got there. I mean, you and I talked about your history before, but tell our audience a little bit about you. And I'm going to do my fun with sharing stuff.
So should I tell them the secret that I'm a bottle blonde and my real hair color is like chestnut? Then they know a real secret that blonde covers the gray better. So there's a little story. Actually, I bring that up because I was doing some volunteer work yesterday for Habitat for Humanity in my community. And we have a new lady working for Habitat who asked me, she said, "Where'd you go to high school?" And I told her I went to Northwest Cabarrus. And she said, "Well, when did you graduate?" Which is a trick question, Dave, as you know, because I always think I'm younger. And then I want to answer, but then I realized they're probably like graduated in 2015 or something, and it hurts my feelings. But anyway, I answered her, and she told me she was 2 years behind me in school. And then we were talking maiden names, and it was just a lot of fun to know things. And then she texted me a picture from my high school yearbook last night that she went and looked me up to see if she could remember me. And it's so wildly different than where I am today, which is actually my career story, right? So wildly different from where I started. Grew up on a farm at the edge of the county on land that is now subdivisions and malls. And so I've watched the transition of land and the growth of the area. And I went from college to bartending, which is actually how I paid for college. And so I'm a big proponent of people working really hard, 2 jobs, 3 jobs if you have to pay your own bills and show some responsibility for your life, because that's what my parents expected of me. I went from bartending to being a stockbroker in Manhattan. And obviously I totally fit in Manhattan with an accent like this. Went from Manhattan to selling chainsaws as the only woman on the sales force for premium chainsaws, weed trimmers, and lawnmowers. From there to real estate. And my real estate journey is 22 years now. I have been a person on my dad's team. My dad's a retired realtor. He's still alive. So if I use past tense, it's only because he's retired. And then I became a team leader, owned a franchise, sold that franchise, and opened an independent brokerage 1 month before COVID started. Hey, perfect timing, as the real estate market went from doing really well to white hot fire heat. So I've seen and done a whole lot in my life. I have enjoyed the heck out of the ride I've had in real estate, because the 22 years as a realtor, as I said, I've been in different capacities, from team agent to team leader to broker owner. I still do operate a small team, and we love being small. We do not need to be number one. I have had that capacity, don't need it, don't want it anymore, because you should also know goals change in life. My goals move and change all the time. But the thing I love about real estate is all the pathways that you don't think about. So I used to have a property management division. Happiest day of my career was selling that freaking thing. And then I have worked with land and multifamily. That's what I've been doing since COVID started, is getting a new set of skills and taking some new classes, because frankly, residential can be just exhausting, and I needed something to get my juice back. And so I went out to go learn some new things. And anyway, I could talk for days, but maybe you have a question to ask, or somebody's asking a question in the live stream.
Well, I want to thank you for indulging as I go off camera on this. Everybody says, where'd Dave go? And some people get lost that I'm doing, but I'm actually sharing it to other pages. I don't want people to think I'm looking at my phone. And since I mentioned to you that I am my own cameraman, I've got something else going at the same time. So it's questions. Okay, great. So let's look at the market today. All right. I'm gonna ask you questions of things I've been working on with my coaching clients, with my mentees, and my downline. So here's the question. How does the conversation change because of the change in inventory and the change in interest rates? I'm hitting it going right at it. How does that conversation change, and what's the most important thing about it?
So realtors have to understand that the conversations change. That's the first thing. And I always ask the trick question when I'm teaching the class, Dave. I'm like, so what question do people ask you? And they knee jerk react and say, how's the market? And I said, that's a lie. That's not what anybody's asking you. The question you're getting right now is, so when's the market going to crash? And they always kind of look around to see who's listening, and they ask it under their breath, because people feel like it's the Voldemort thing in Harry Potter. If you say Voldemort's name, then he comes back. Or Beetlejuice, you can't say out loud that the market is unstable right now, but it is unstable. And so when somebody says, is the market going to crash? My answer to them is, it depends. And we have to stop thinking that we're soothsayers or that we know what's best for anybody. As a realtor, your job is to say, it depends. And they would say, what does that mean? I'm like, the market could keep going up. It could go sideways. It could go down. I don't know. I do know interest rates are going to continue going up. I know that because I do have a text thread from my Wall Street days, and I talk to commodities people and brokers on the street. I know what's happening up there. We're going to see 7.5%, 8% by the end of the year, just because of the unchecked inflation insanity that's going on. So what does that mean? Well, if somebody says, should I buy? Your answer is, it depends, because interest rates are not going to go back down to 3. Get over that. And one of the best things you can ever do for your public is let them know it's gone. I mean, just say, I wish I'd have bought 2 years ago. Oh, well, let it go. Right. And also price yourself into it of, I can get low rates and a price I don't like, or I can wait for prices to come down while rates go up. So then I'm paying more monthly. But what if interest rates go up and prices continue to go up, because we do still have a shortage of rooftops? And so as a realtor, you just have to not lay down absolutes. Just say, look, here's the possibilities. Should I sell right now? It depends. If you need to catch your money, then go ahead and catch the money we have right now. I know what today's market is. I don't know the 6 months from now market. And in fact, one of the things that I tell people on an appointment, and I literally said this last night on the listing appointment from one of my past clients, he's talking about the numbers with me. And I said, I want you to understand something. This market analysis is good for 24 hours. Realtors have to do a much better job of explaining that, because the markets can change on a dime. And by the way, that's also how long a survey is good for, is 24 hours. How long is an inspection good? 24 hours. An appraisal, 24 hours. Because the market can change so dramatically. And we've seen that. We've all lived through it. We didn't know what was going to happen in March of 2020 when COVID started, when the lockdowns were thrust upon us.
Right.
Everything shut down and everybody went into a flat panic. Couple of weeks later, everything got set on fire. It's been on fire now for 2.5 years. What we're watching right now in real time is how interest rates are impacting demand in the market and how consumer confidence, which this morning, the consumer confidence numbers came out, lowest recorded rate in history, lowest ever. There's no consumer confidence right now. So as a realtor, do you tell people, well, actually, you should be panicked and give up and go get on the couch? No, realtors don't do that. We don't give false hope. We say, look, here's the options. Prices might go up. They might go sideways. They might go down. Interest rates are going up. So you get to decide what to do. I'll help you no matter what.
Yeah, you hit so many topics there, which are really, really important. I mean, you hit what's going on. It depends. I love that. But here's something else you hit, which you hit indirectly, which was the mindset of the agent, right? And I think the first thing that's got to change is the mindset of the agent. Look, it's obvious. The last people to know what's going on, it's the agent. And then the last real people are the buyers and the sellers, because they think this and they think that. I mean, look at it this way. A year ago, when we had, or 2 years ago, or a year ago, whatever, when we had a house that was selling for 400, it would go for 420. Then the next person said, I'm going to put my house on at 425 and I'm going to get 450. And it happened. All this happened, right? And the consumer still doesn't get it. Now the buyer wants a discount and the seller still wants 20% over asking, no matter what they ask. And they think they don't need real estate agents. That's where the mindset of the agent has to come in order to change that, in order to how that dialogue is, because they're going to start making statements. And by that point, they're going to be all wrong, right?
Oh, absolutely. And you make a really good point here too about what we say to people. And when you look at this, that mindset, it's everything. It's not that you go into this with that Pollyanna thing of it's always a great time to buy or sell, because that's a terrible thing to do. And all these realtors from the last recession, you and I watched them do it. When they were refusing to accept what was happening in the market, they hurt people. And I can't stress this enough. If you are not doing the research, you hurt people, because if a ball starts going downhill and you don't move, the ball's further away from you. Well, then you move, but the ball's still below you. You're chasing and chasing. And if the ball does start moving downhill and somebody has to sell, they got to get in front of it. That's our job as realtors, is to just help them react. And so if you want to have the mindset of serving the public, then get comfortable with some data points that will help you stay ahead of the Pollyanna people. And that is going to be days on market. If there's anything you watch in your multiple listing service right now, it's watch days on market, because 6 months ago, 12 months ago, days on market was probably 1 or 2. Houses were selling and coming soon. They were multiple offers day 1. By the time you get everything signed, it's day 2. Now you're looking at 14 days on market. A lot of realtors, Dave, and you know this, I love them. They're very positive people. They're like, it's just 14 days. Woo, 2 weeks. It's still great. Do the math. The percentage change on that is so big. And so we have to tell the consumer, we were at 2 days 3 months ago. Now we're at 14 days. That's an indicator of a softening in the market. It doesn't mean the wheels are off the bus. It doesn't mean we're going into the same problems we had in 2008. Those were different issues that affected the market. But we have to be honest with people. And if they see that and say, oh my God, it's changing, your response to them is, do you have to sell? Because if they don't, then they get to choose. Do I mess around with this, or I stick it out and see what happens? But maybe the seller says, well, we're under contract on another house, and we've got a deposit down. We've got $50,000 out of pocket. We have to. If the consumer says, I have to sell, then you get to say, great, here's the range. If we price it here, it looks pretty confident that it'll happen fairly quickly, considering that markets are fluid and my CMA is good for 24 hours. But the seller won't ask you for 30% above market. If you present a data point that makes sense, ask them what matters to them, and then let them position. If you never ask the right questions, of course they position unrealistically, and then they get hurt. We have to have the mindset that we don't want to hurt people. We want to serve. And I think the best realtors are organically wired that way. And you just have to think differently about your questions as the market shifts.
Right. And you're using words that make a lot of sense. Instead of saying, know what's going on, you have to use data points that make sense to that seller, that make sense to that customer, that consumer that you're working with, right? A lot of people go in and they want to do a market analysis, and that's great, and that's the way it should be. You need to do that, but it's not necessarily what that house down the street sold for 2 months ago. It's what it necessarily is. What is that data telling me? I scare a lot of new agents because and experienced agents, because I tell them, look, you need to know, not only do you need to know the market, you need to be expert in the market. And you need to know certain data points from a year ago to 6 months ago to now and how that all relates. I can go back to 1979 and 80 and know that the interest rates were 18 to 20%. And guess what? Houses still sold. People still bought houses.
Every market, houses are bought and sold.
Exactly. And I also know the difference between 2008 and today, right? There was all greed in 05 to 08, and it had nothing to do with, I mean, there's more savings now. There's more equity in homes. People have to understand that data there and understand those numbers so that when we do make a presentation, even to a buyer, we need to set their expectations. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And you don't have to know all the data points. So
Right.
To the point of you need to know your data, I get it. Realtors, by our nature, not the best people with numbers and math. We can do percentages and we can hang on to a certain piece, but the number one skill of a realtor is that relationship building and that connectivity. Well, you have to remember the public too has a limited attention span, and they may or may not be wired for all the data points. And so when I'm in an appointment, I also ask, so how much of the numbers do you want? How geeky are you? So that I can direct the conversation. If they're super geeky, maybe they're an engineer like my husband, I'm going to give them all the data points. But maybe it's somebody who's in sales or they're a CEO and they're like, I don't want any of it. Just give me a number. Let me roll on. Then I'm going to really personalize the information to them. But my job is to collect the data and then personalize the data so that we can make good decisions. And
Right.
I find that realtors get very scared of the numbers, and you just have to get over that hump because your competitors who are not watching this, who are not getting themselves additional education, all right, they're going to do things the way they've always done. And if you're investing the time in getting this information, for heaven's sakes, use it.
Right. Exactly. And the interesting part of all of this is the relationship building, is what you said. And we cannot forget that, right? Having the data, and I did put emphasis on that a few minutes ago. Having the data is extremely important, but it also is not about, it's not about you and knowing the information. It's about where you're going to build that relationship.
Yes.
So you can build that in. And it's called rapport. And if you're out of rapport, you're never going to be able to insert the data into the situation. I mean, when we're looking at working with buyers and sellers, I mean, buyers are one thing because they may call you or you may get referred somebody. So that's really nice. Sellers are a little bit different. I mean, if you're calling for sale by owners or expireds, that's where the rapport really needs to start. But you always need to continue to build that rapport as you move on.
So let's talk about that real quick, though, because if you want to build rapport, you don't lie to people. And realtors for time immemorial have called a for sale by owner and said, I have a buyer for your listing. Whether they had one or not, they're going to drag a cousin in there and pretend they have a buyer so they can get the listing.
That's right.
We have to build rapport in a really honest way. And so if you call for sale by owners, you can say, hey, I'm Carl P, since Carl's commenting for us over here. Say, hey, I'm Carl P, and I just want to know if I could provide you some information about what's happening in the market. You'd be surprised how many buy owners would be really intrigued by your information and your data. And if they accept it, then the next thing you say is, may I borrow 15 minutes of your time to properly explain this? And if they say no, let it be. If they say yes, you just got the beginnings of an appointment without having to lie and without being gross, so that you can provide a service. We know that as markets shift, for sale by owners are the first ones to get the brunt of it because there's nobody to give them guidance, and they're going to need a professional realtor. And if all realtors were highly educated, ethical, and professional, then it would be a much harder business than it is. But as it turns out, if you're a highly ethical, knowledgeable, and professional realtor who is also doing some prospecting and available, you're going to find your business grows when markets change, as long as you, again, are honest and available with information.
Is there an issue with honesty and forthrightness in our business?
Well, I'll just put it to you this way. I think realtors, by their nature, because they're relationshipy people, they're passive aggressive and non-confrontational. And so they don't maliciously lie, but they skirt hard, difficult things to say because nobody wants to say hard things. we're not perceived as an honest business because a realtor will walk into a house and say, oh, you don't need to stage it. Actually, the data show even during the COVID run up, a properly staged and conditioned house still outpaces the ones that aren't. But a realtor who's desperate to get the listing thinks that by not telling them, you're going to keep them happy so you can get the listing instead of telling the truth. And then you look at what's happened with buyers. How many realtors in the run up have said to people, well, I mean, there's no comps, let's just guess. And they're throwing things into the wind and they're not perceived as being truthful, where a really good ethical realtor still ran a CMA on a buyer file in the last 2.5 years and said, here's where the comps are. We're going to have to bid above that if we want to win because it's competitive. But I want you to know what the trends have been in this neighborhood.
Right.
If we would do more of that, we would be perceived differently.
Right.
But we haven't taken the time as a profession for all 1.6 million realtors out there to decide that they're all in for real estate. They're all in for being professional. They're all in for being ethical, and they're all in for being highly knowledgeable people. A whole bunch are, but we have a whole bunch of mediocrity. So until we as professionals are willing to elevate the mediocre and give them a chance to get better or turn them in if they're maliciously lying, then it's not going to change. We have to make choices as members of the profession.
Absolutely. You said 1.6 million, and one of the interesting statistics over the past couple of years is we were at, when pandemic started, we were about 1.5 million. And one of the things that I said in the beginning of that quarantine and everything, and what was going to happen with real estate agents, was that we were going to lose a lot of real estate agents, right? But we didn't. So here's the interesting part. One of the things that I researched as far as numbers were concerned was we went from 1.5 million to 1.6 million realtors. And the interesting statistic is 400,000 of those are new over the last 3 years. Think about that one. Where do you think this business is going as far as numbers are concerned with the change that we're seeing in the market itself? Because, in 04, 05, 06, we saw a lot of new real estate agents, right? A lot of new realtors. And we're seeing the same thing. When I would interview a mentee, it would be, well, you know what? I'm going to be an investor. So I figured I'd get my license and learn the business. And then when, you had a session for them or whatever, they're gone. They're not showing up. They just needed to do that. Where do you think we're going with numbers? Where do you think we're going with quality?
Well, I think it's twofold with the numbers. There's a couple of things that are going to happen. A lot of those folks who came in the last 3 years that you're referencing, if they build a relationship with a broker or a mentor who's been through other market conditions, they might wind up being the best realtor we've ever seen. So I want y'all to know that early career doesn't make you a crap agent. It just means you have to really be thoughtful about how you plug yourself in because, well, our early career realtors, it's been from 2008, the 30-year fixed has been hovering around 3%. And so even for a seasoned realtor who came in since 2008, they may or may not have any experience with these higher interest rates that you and I know because we're medium aged. So you have to have that relationship to survive. A lot of them don't have the relationship. They haven't effectively chosen a team leader or a broker who's going to help them be strong enough. And then they're going to figure out it's a very expensive hobby. And so they'll organically go away. And we know that historically the numbers have held up that 85% of new realtors quit within the first 2 years because they realize it's so competitive. It's so exhausting. It takes so much self-discipline. It takes so much money to survive that they just pull up stakes and change their gears. The other thing that's going to affect us, though, is the way that the government is laser beam focused on challenging our profession. The DOJ and the federal government don't believe that real estate is competitive, which to me is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. It's so highly competitive. And all of us know in our local markets, everybody's got a different value prop and they've got different people that they interact with and they've got different specialties in the market. I mean, each realtor is a tiny, tiny micro entrepreneur of this many people. And we as realtors as a profession haven't effectively told that story. So the government thinks we're a monolith, which is just insane. And they want to break everything up. They want to make the MLS a regulated utility, which is the brink of insanity because the MLS is actually a true free market where I can list the property every buyer in the marketplace has access. Every agent in the marketplace has access. And so it means there's really a good, fair, level playing field. But if the government gets further involved in this, which they're already doing, I think that's going to take a lot of agents out of the game, because they're just going to realize they don't know what the value is that they bring. And if anything worries me about realtors, Dave, it's that educationally, we haven't focused enough on teaching realtors how to explain what a realtor does. They still think that what they do is unlock doors. No, that's a task. They think they negotiate. Actually, you're really mediating and consulting. They don't understand that what they are is professional problem solvers. You're hired to go in and troubleshoot and help somebody figure it out. When do I sell? How do I price it? How do I make an offer that's going to go through if I'm a buyer? What do I do with repairs and surveys and appraisals and closings and moving and final walkthroughs and all the stuff? That's what a realtor is hired to do, but our members don't know it. And so because they don't know it, they're under attack. And for many people, when they're attacked, they retreat, but not warriors. When warriors are attacked, they advance. And so what I say is that the realtors who survive through the coming numbers letting that's going to happen have to decide to advance no matter what, because without a great realtor, so many of our neighbors around this country wouldn't have access to the American dream, because nobody else gives them the information to get there except for a seasoned, knowledgeable realtor. And by seasoned, I don't mean years in the business, because you could be a 40-year realtor who sucks. I mean seasoned as in you have done some transactions and you have used your time in the field and gained enough knowledge to know what to tell people.
Mic drop. So we look at, I look at professionalism, and you alluded to different things that happen in our business. We look at the person doing the right job and that warriors advance, and these are the ones that are going to really excel, right? These are the ones that are going to take their business and have a real situation, when not a situation, but a real relationship with their buyers, with their sellers, and they're going to help them out in every way, shape, and form. And then I think the numbers game is I was wrong the last two times. I thought the numbers were going to decrease, and they actually increased both times.
Me too.
Okay, good. So it's like, it's we're not selling apples here, right? It's the relationship game. It's the people that are going to move forward. And actually, I believe the ones that are going to do really well are the ones that are going to take a chance. They're going to take a chance on being different, being better. And there's so many people that there are some ones that go off the rails, and that's a problem. But there's not for us to solve, because we can't solve it. However, we can move forward and make our feelings known, which is, like you said, report the people that aren't doing the right thing. And that's an issue in and of itself, because a lot of agents, they just want to walk away from it and not having to do with it. So talk to me about you're in 22 years. You're a coach, you're an agent, you are I think you're called the most sought after speaker in the business these days. Is that what we are? Right?
I'm not just called the most sought after speaker.
You are.
I am the most sought after speaker, but it's because realtors need to laugh and be educated at the same time. Let's just be honest.
I 100% agree. And when when I'm having a session or doing anything, and realtors say something that doesn't make a lot of sense, I try to make them laugh, but I also ask them, is it okay if I piss you off right now? Because what you're saying is way out of line, right? And
That's so nice. You asked permission before you did it. I mean, that's very thoughtful. Very
I have that. Also with sellers, when I'm making for sale by owner calls, is it okay if I piss you off with what I'm about to say? Is that okay?
So the Southern version of that is I say, do I have your permission to tell you the truth? See, but you speak a little bit more
New Jersey,
Northern Yankee than I do.
Yes, well, okay, I'm a Yankee fan, so that has nothing to do with it. But anyway,
you brag about that.
What's that?
You brag about that?
I do. Yes, I do. Absolutely. Yeah. Since I was knee high to a grasshopper. But anyway, I digress. So tell me about what projects you're working on today. Where are you at with your business, with brokers, with everything? Where are you at with all this stuff now?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's every 5 minutes I've got to do something different, because I'm a realtor, which means I have ADD. And that's why there's 1,000 different projects going at any time. What I'm working on right now with my team, I try to do really specific training with them. And right now we're working through cap gains. And I think this is something realtors have got to get a handle on very quickly, because traditionally somebody buys a house, they'd stay in it 5, 7, 10 years. But because of the run up in the market, a lot of realtors are getting calls from people who bought a house in April of 2020. They know the price has run up. They want to harvest those gains. Well, if they do that, there's got to be a good, concise explanation to that consumer of, here's what the pros and cons are, because you now have a cap gains tax situation. We know that primary residence is exempt from cap gains if you're in it 2 out of the past 5 years, and if it's below the 250, 500 threshold of gain amount. But a lot of markets have outpaced that. So
Right.
I don't think realtors are ready yet to have the conversation about, how much money did you make, Mr. Seller? Again, listing a conversation I had last night. I said, how much money did you declare on your taxes? Was it between $45,000 and $459,000? He said, why? I said, this is going to determine, because he's only been in the house a year and a half, I'm going to have to help you figure out, are you paying 15% in cap gains or 20% in cap gains? And is that too much money? Do you want to wait until November to avoid the cap gain situation? Well, I can't wait till November. Great. I put it on the net sheet. And now I'm saying, when you get the check at closing, you cannot roll every dollar into your next primary. You cannot take every dollar and pay off whatever debt or put it in the stock market, whatever else. You have to keep a chunk for the IRS. And this is not a conversation that we're used to having, because Dave,
Right.
you and I have been in a long time.
Right.
Typically somebody's in a year and a half, they're a little bit upside down. If they can pay commission, we were like, whoo, you did pretty good. But now they've got a real equity number that they've got to take into consideration. And so today's job was to educate my team. I made a video that I'm going to drop on YouTube about cap gains to educate future sellers. And so every project that I do, I'm dialing into a specific area. And it also means that when I get a call from a seller suspect, we can send them that video and say, we noticed you've been in your house less than 2 years. Please watch this video so we can have an intelligent conversation about gains. Anything my competitors won't do, I've got to do. So that's today's project. And frankly, it all for me revolves around, what am I finding out on buyer and seller appointments? What do people need to know about? And I mentioned at the very beginning, I've been doing more multifamily since COVID started. Because I have a lot of investors coming from New York, New Jersey, California, getting out of high tax states, coming where the jobs and the growth are, because North Carolina is the 3rd fastest growing state.
Yes, it
I
is.
have to know where they can put their money. So I had to go learn with a mentor how to handle that marketplace, which means I have to know about 1031 in a different way now. So I also made a video about the 1031, because I find most realtors don't understand it very well, and neither does the public. And God help us, our elected officials don't understand it, but they keep attacking it. And so I'm really getting into these pieces that are impactful. And I'll say this, that for any realtor who's trying to stay ahead of their marketing and stay ahead of the market, you got to pay attention to what people are asking when they're asking questions. And in my area, we have a lot of, like I said, investors. We also have a shortage of housing because we have new jobs coming in. So what are you doing to talk about those things? That's every day, something different.
So, one of the difficult things in my area with agents has always been, they are really squeamish. What's squeamish? Squeamish. That's the word I was looking for. Wow.
I think we made it. There's the skirmish or the squeamish. Skirmish amongst the squeamish.
Yes, exactly. You got it right. You hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much for your help. That's why I love you so much. So here's the thing. I mean, a net sheet, right? I'm going to tell you that most brokers in the regular brokers models never talk about net sheets.
I know. Why, Dave? It's basic. It's even in the MLS. It's in the built-in CMA and the MLS.
Plain, simple English. They don't have the balls to tell the seller the amount of money they're going to get when they sell the house. They think
and
they're
that's
stupid.
why they're so afraid. They're afraid to charge anything. And I think a good realtor should be totally okay with charging a professional fee for the value they're providing. But you know what? This goes back to the discussion about mediocrity and the lack of professionalism. So many realtors aren't actually delivering value. They're afraid to show what they're going to charge. And that's a basic expectation of a consumer. What's it going to cost me to use you? Well, you got to show that professional fee. You got to show what it costs to sell in your state. New Jersey, you've got all those stupid transfer taxes that we don't have them as bad in North Carolina, but I got to show what I have. I got to show attorney fees. And now I got to show cap gains. Any realtor not doing it, I will tell you this, I see them at the closing table, and you do too. When I'm on one side with my buyers and they're across the way with their agent, and that seller's like, you didn't tell me about all this, and they're furious. And they're not furious because they're paying it. They're furious because it wasn't part of their education. And realtors have to do a better job of educating and setting expectations earlier so that people aren't surprised.
Yeah, exactly. And when you don't do that, if you think they're going to tell anybody to use you, that ain't going to happen.
They shouldn't. They should be telling them, this one didn't give me enough information, because it's your job. That's what you're hired for.
Yeah. And I tell you what, it's interesting because there's a lot of agents out there, a lot of good agents out there that will say the reason they got into business in the first place because they got screwed or had a bad agent.
Isn't that wild? It's wild.
Right. And you know, there's people that have been on this broadcast as agents and coaches that have said the same thing. And that's why they got involved in it. I was recently at a conference in Dallas a few weeks ago, and you know what? Two of the top line speakers, I'm not going to use their names, but that's what they said. That's why they got into the business, where they felt that they could do a much better job than the person and really help people. I get a kick out of a lot of agents when they tell me that, oh yeah, I love helping people. I love helping, you know, I like the smiles on their faces. Right. Okay. Well, obviously what you're doing, you're not getting a lot of smiles. So that happens all the time. So as we move along into this business we call real estate, you mentioned some government obstacles that we're we're going to have to work through with the Justice Department and everything else, and them considering it a monolith, right? So is there a way around that? Is there a way that you think NAR or anyone else can help us with that? I know they're doing a great job, so I'm not being critical. I'm just saying, what's the answer? Is there an answer to this stuff that we have to deal with?
Well, the first answer is a time machine. We need to go back in time and do a better job of articulating the value of realtors. But since we don't have time machines, what we have to be doing, each of us, is being more thoughtful about our marketing, because our elected officials are coming from all of these districts around the country. So your 535 members of Congress come from every one of our states, which means a lot of them have staff in your district. They're watching your social post. Why do I mention this? Because when a realtor posts on Instagram, oh, sold this house in 5 minutes with 485 offers at 5,000% of ask, you just told everybody that you actually skimmed money off the top and weren't valuable. That's all those posts have said to people. Now, if your post said something like, I'm so proud of my sellers, they spent 6 months getting this house ready, and boy, howdy, they found a great buyer because everything was prepared. That'd be an entirely different way to tell the story. You'd then be saying, as a realtor, I helped them for months before we hit the market. I've been working with them for a long time. They are reaping the rewards, and so is the buyer. If you take the spotlight off of us and put it on those that we serve, it changes everything. And so your narrative needs to change in your social media. It also means you have to think about the fact that there are big brands out there, but the brands are made up of 1099s. Every market is covered up in micro entrepreneurs, and the government thinks we're all the realtors, and we do act together as one voice on some things. But in general, each one of us, like I said much earlier, we're operating in these tiny little bubbles in our markets. And you can go to competition.realtor at any time to get the information on how to combat the message from the DOJ. That's a page that the National Association of Realtors put out to help realtors know what to say. It's got some graphics and research you can share to talk about the fact that most realtors are mom and pop shops, and they really are serving a tiny local network of a neighborhood. So start telling the story differently. It also means that when your elected officials are in district, and by that, I mean, you don't have to go to DC to see your congressman or your senator, especially in an election year. They're all having fundraisers and events in your district. You got to go. And when you go, you wear your realtor pin. And I don't care if you don't like politics. That's irrelevant to me. You have to show up and say, I'm a realtor. I serve neighbors out here trying to buy and sell houses, and I'm watching. A lot of that starts to send a message that the realtors are doing things nationally, but you as a voter in their district are paying attention. And a lot of realtors are allergic to this day. They don't want to be seen as partisan politics. And I'm telling you, it's not about being partisan. It's about being visible. There's an entirely different thing. I'm not saying get on Facebook and type a screed and all caps, exclamation points, and start blocking and hating people. That's not how the realtors operate. The realtors operate by saying, we know your voters, your constituents. We know what matters to them. Right. We know how hard it's been to get an FHA loan through, how hard it's been to get a VA loan through, how critical it is to have price point housing that is very diverse, to have different styles of housing. We get it. And so we have to take what we get from our day-to-day business and translate it to our elected officials. But it's not just DC, it's our states that have to hear from us, because a lot of our policies statewide impact our neighbors. And right. Most importantly, it's in your county and your city and in your school board, your planning and zoning. All of those super local opportunities are where the bulk of our issues are coming from. Because if you want to know why new builds are so high, go look at what it costs to build a house right now, what your county requires for curb and gutter, for mailboxes, for environmental overlays. What's the DOT charging for a turn lane? How many houses can I put in? Do I have to keep a green space? Every rule that gets added adds to the cost of a house. And so you cannot, as a realtor, fuss about the cost of housing if you're not showing up at planning and zoning and county commission and saying, if you guys add a rule, it adds $5,000 to a house and the developer isn't going to eat it, and they shouldn't have to, but the buyer will wind up eating it. We have to just be a more intelligent, visible voice.
Okay, so I think I need another hour and a half to work on all of that, what you just said. So I want to thank you for that. But I want to go into a couple of different things here. So number one, we'll go back to about a few minutes ago. We talked about what you're putting out there on social. From time to time, I do get attacked for my comments and stuff of what I say. And you said, usually I ask for, hey, you know what? Congratulations on the sale. Tell me the story. Tell me the story of what's going on, right? And I recently got attacked by several realtors in my area that I'm trolling people and giving them a hard time, and that I should let them just do what they want to do. Okay, fine. You know what? Maybe you're right. I don't think so, but that's okay. And telling the story of what you're doing and getting involved.
Hang on, just hang on a second. I got to say something about that. Part of the reason this country is in the mess it's in is because those of us who are thoughtful people who work our tails off have let other people do what they want to do the whole time. Our society was never built on everybody go serve your own narcissistic pleasure. Sometimes we have to say the message has to make sense. And as a realtor, if my competitors are doing things that denigrate my profession, it is my job to say something. It is your job. And if they don't like it, then they're probably defensive because they know we're right. And I'll point this out too, because in the past, we know this for 30, 40, forever. We've had all these years of training saying, doesn't cost you anything to use a buyer's agent. Well, spoiler alert, that's now a violation of the code of ethics. And so when I see a realtor post it, I'm going to tell them, because the code of ethics is a self-policing document. And if somebody's screwing up and somebody says, well, just let them be, no, because it reflects poorly on me. As a realtor in North Carolina, if y'all misbehave in New Jersey, it looks bad on me because people think we're a monolith. If I behave poorly, it reflects poorly on you. We have to be more cognizant of how our actions impact other people's businesses, and that's not okay. So anyway, you can carry on now, but that made me mad.
Sorry about that, but thank you for that. I mean, it's so prevalent in the industry. It's so prevalent all over because of my job is to engage with human beings, right? And that's what I do, whether it's a buyer, seller, or real estate agent for that matter. And I do a lot of that. And sometimes I need to really slow down sometimes because I just see so much of it. And I just have one point with that, Leigh, is that, a lot of people say, you're in the business, find someone that's a top agent and copy them. No, find someone that's a top agent and model their business, model what they're doing. Because if you're copying something, think about what the tip of the iceberg looks like. And you're looking at these posts that they may be bragging about something, but then again, you missed everything else that they're doing and that they're posting. You missed it. And all you're doing is copying the bullshit that they're putting out there, right? And that's what pisses me off. That's what gets to me. And then I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe I attack people sometimes. I don't mean to do it, but I'm just asking, tell me the story. What happened? Tell me how you helped them. And when I see somebody doing it, which is rare, I say, great story, man. Thanks for giving that to us. This is great content. Okay, let me shift off and get off my soapbox for a second and go to the next thing. So getting involved. It's, you talked about something like go to these meetings, go to these meet and greets or whatever they are with the local elected officials. And notice I said elected officials, not politicians. And you're going there to talk to elected officials, and you just want to ask simple questions and tell them certain things. That is a business person going out there. It's not getting involved in politics. Just to clarify one little point, because people say, you and I know through our private conversations that we have our own solid thoughts on things. And what we're saying is get involved. Even if you don't agree with everybody else, get involved and have the intestinal fortitude, guts, to say something, to say what's important to you and what's important to your business. It's called getting involved, and it's part of your business, right? It's just part of your business.
Yes,
right?
It's why I do RPAC. And I do RPAC because if I am not the voice in the room, then who is? And I think realtors have to get a hold of this, because maybe they don't like my politics. Well, guess what? I'm the voice at the table because I'm investing. I am showing up. I am on the phone with people. I am reading the policies and I am asking questions. And if you don't like me doing it, then you absolutely can do all the same things and be in the room with me. And if we disagree, even better, because then the elected official could hear both sides of a conversation. How cool would that be to get away from this uniparty that's running things in DC and get back to intelligent people having point counterpoint with what they disagree about without being ugly and emotional and nasty? I don't go talk to elected officials to be emotional and nasty. I go to take facts. I know that the amount of regulatory burden on a new construction build, national average, all right, nationally, new construction house. Do you know how much of the price is regulatory burden?
It's got to be
$92,000. Now tell me that's a partisan issue. That's not a partisan issue. That is elected officials run amok with something that sounds cool to them, or one squeaky person showed up who wasn't related to real estate. So you want to look at what happens when one squeaky person shows up who's not a realtor. Look at what happened in California. They got statewide rent control because there's a group talking about cancel rent. That happened because the logical, I don't like politics realtor did not show up to say, well, wait, that doesn't make sense. It's never worked. And so sometimes you have to go to be the voice in the room that says, but I work with investors, buyers, sellers, and tenants, and here's why the data doesn't match. That's what politics is. Politics is how we behave together in public. It's not R versus D. So you have to get yourself out of that mindset and realize that for realtors, it's about policy, not politicians. I don't really care who's elected. I care if they're listening to me. So I'm going to talk to D's and I'm going to talk to R's. And I'm always hopeful to find a few I's. They're just kind of in secret hiding these days. So go find them and talk to them. I mean, honestly, we're realtors. We're so good at relationships. We should take that and translate it to the elected officials and remind them that we don't work for them. They work for us.
Yeah, but you tell them that, and they just, I mean, they don't get it. I mean,
they do when you show up. If 4 realtors are in any city council meeting wearing their realtor R pin, this is the conversation. Why are all the realtors here? Because as it turns out, when one squeaky person shows up all the time, if 4 realtors show up, suddenly you've become all those realtors, and then they hear us. The reason realtors do have a voice at the table, there are so many of us, and we choose to work together. We choose not to be partisan and be nasty. We choose to work together on policy issues. That's powerful, because if there's anything that makes an elected official listen, it's votes. And realtors represent a lot of votes. And I visit with a lot of voters in my community, and they ask me who to vote for. So I am now a power player in my community simply because I ask questions and I'm willing to give people a little bit of counsel and advice. They can do what they want to do with it, but you too could be that voice of reason in your community. So if you want elected officials to listen, then be visible.
100%. I mean, we do equal votes. And last time we checked, we talked about it, 1.6 million realtors and probably another 500,000 licensed real estate
At
agents.
least 1 million. And guess what? Of realtors, 87% of us vote. We are one of the most influential voting blocks because we actually take the time to go to primaries and generals. That's
right. And you know, you talked about RPAC, and it's so very, very important. I will admit that I didn't think it was important a number of years ago, but I have come completely around to that, and how important it is, especially with you know, you said that, you know, the ethics violations now with saying that, you know, you don't pay anything or it's free for you. You got to worry. We got to be really careful with those words, guys. So we've done a really great job of going on and but this is again, you were a top 10 at week 51. You're a top 10 at week 219. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I mean, what is in the future? Where are you going to be over the next few months? I'm sure you'll be at NAR, but that's a little ways away. What do you got cooking?
Well, my travel calendar is at leighbrown.com. Frankly, I only know 30 days in advance, but I will be in New Jersey in October, I think, or September at the East Central New Jersey Realtors, which is one of my favorite associations. And so I'll be there for the general member meeting. And I mean, I'm all over the country, so you can always visit with me online. I'd also do lots of online trainings and stuff, but you should be planning for the National Association of Realtors convention. That's in Orlando in November, and that's worth the money, because what you'll find is that you can build networks. Like Dave and I have built a network, and we know each other from doing things. And then we get to make our relationship stronger when we see other realtors, and we can build networks, because you can't do real estate successfully all by yourself without just burning out and turning into a plant no one waters, who withers and dies.
Well, that's the interesting part about our business, is that, you know, there are a lot of people that want to do it on their own, and they don't understand that, you know, they need collaboration. They really do. I mean, working on your own.
I mean, none of us could handle every listing in our market or every buyer, and you don't want to. So if we need each other locally, you start to realize we need each other in our states and nationally too, because what impacts my clients in North Carolina does get impacted by in New Jersey as well. I mean, we all have issues with flood. We all have issues. We need to protect the 1031. There's so many policy issues that impact us. If I know what's happening in your area, I can help prepare my people here, and vice versa. I mean, Morristown, New Jersey, I don't know where that is related to you, but all of them moved to Charlotte. They live in Ballantyne 28277, because I know exactly where to take my Morristown people. So it's smart for me to know New Jersey agents, because I can then help their clients settle here easily. And it's the best part of traveling to events. Plus you get information, and it's great.
Right. So Morristown is 30 minutes from me west, and I do play golf there quite often. So yes, it's a great area. It's a great town.
So remind every realtor there, if they have people coming to Charlotte, that Leigh Brown knows where they want to go, and I will help get them settled here.
Well, the great thing is that I've been so lucky to work with a lot of agents in your area, in North Carolina, in South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Wisconsin, California, all New England, etc. So, I mean, you know, there's different trials and tribulations in North Carolina than there are in New Jersey. I believe that your laws are stricter as far as a lot of different things are concerned, but it goes with the territory. Everybody has their own stuff. So, I have two more things, and then we're going to be done for today. Unfortunately, we have a very, very quick hour. So
I know we've rambled a lot,
but I think it's been amazing. It's been an awesome broadcast. It's been awesome talking to you. I mean, you know, this could be. I mean, we could go on and on. So the last question I have for you, really, Leigh, is how can I help you grow your business? How can Dave help Leigh grow her business?
Oh, well, I guess you tell all of your coaching clients that I have an active team in Charlotte that loves paying agent referrals. And if there's ever any coaching they need outside of yours, that you and I have programs that are not the same, and there's a butt for every saddle. So we all help each other find the right place for them. And in general, I like to help. And so I think what you could do for me is let people come to my social channels. And what I can do for them is they can take my content as a starting point and a framework and create their own version of it going forward.
Right. So you are a proponent. You are a positive person when it comes to R&D.
Rip off and duplicate. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Except I look at it as a framework. I'm always talking in terms of framework, though, because you already mentioned this before. You don't want to be Leigh Brown, but you take Leigh Brown's idea and say, I can make my version of that and make the Ruth Catchin version of what Leigh Brown did. And that's the power.
Right, exactly. And I said, when I first started doing coaching after I sold my brokerage, I said to one of my all-time favorite people in the world, who was a coach of mine for a long time, John Cheplack. I said, John, people have told me I sound like you. People have called me Cheplack Jr.
That's a compliment.
I'm afraid that I'm going to sound like you. He says, Dave, do you think everything I've said I made up? I said, I've learned it from my mentors, from my coaches, and people that I've copied, and it just happened to work. And I want everybody to take a clue here from this. As a famous Beatles line from a song is, I have a clue for you all, the walrus was Paul. What does that mean to me right now? What it means is that it's okay to sound like somebody else. It's okay to model others and to build your business, right? And that's what I've learned. And I thank every mentor and coach that I've ever had in this business. I got one more thing, and it's this. Last time you were on, you did get one of these, but now there's new styles. So, I know you wanted to get this hat. That's why it took you 3 years to come back, but here you are.
That's right. Now I get a red one, but I want pink camo the next time I come back. So start working on a pink camo version.
So when will you be? You'll be in New Jersey, what, in October?
It's either September or October. It's sometime in the fall. I don't remember.
Okay, so
you can ask Bill Flagg. Bill Flagg knows when I'll be there.
Okay, who's that? Bill Flagg. Okay,
I love Bill Flagg.
Yep, I will find out. And I will have a pink camel hat for you when you get here, but I'm going to mail this one to you now. Hey, just stay on for a second, everybody. I want to thank everybody for coming on. We've got another great broadcast coming up next week. By the way, it's at Leigh Thomas Brown on Instagram, and Leigh at leighbrown.com for email, and leighbrown.com for website. Next week, we've got Lauren Teller coming on, who has turned herself into the TikTok queen of real estate. She is a good friend of mine for many years. And we're just going to have a lot of fun and a blast next week. And I don't know how it's going to equal the blast I had today, but at least stay on for a second. We'll be right back. Well, you and I will be right back to have a quick conversation we've done. So everybody, thanks so much for watching today. I can't wait to see you next week. I can't wait to see you around town. Have a great day.